All right, it is 5:30, so I'd like to call this meeting of the DDA Board of Directors to order. Ask Sandra to record the attendance. And then I would ask our board to take a look at the agenda for today's meeting, which was circulated yesterday, last week, and should be on your screens. And then I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to Article 3, which is approval of the minutes of the January 17, 2023 meeting. I actually had a couple of notes on the minutes. Most are clarification questions, so I'll just kind of zip through them here. On page 2 of the minutes, the very first line of the first paragraph where it references the committee, I think we should be clear that we're talking about the Transportation Committee here and that isn't a misnomer for the DDA board, or in contrast, if that was intended to reference the DDA board, then switch that so that it correctly indicates.
That was DDA board.
Was it DDA board? Okay,
Yeah.
so committee should be changed to DDA board. And then later on in that same, at the end of that same paragraph, it says the committee took a brief recess. That should also be the DDA board. And right in the middle, there's a sentence that says, the members discussed if that would be something they were willing to do for Cascade, or if the store could supplement the price of the Rapid for stopping there. I think we're talking about DDA board members there as well. And so we should clarify that. And the beginning of the next paragraph, we say they will survey bus riders. And I think that we should say, either the committee or the DDA board in place of they. So sorry about the number of those. I just wanted to be sure that everybody's was clear on who was saying what. Anybody else have any other notes on the minutes? All right, since I had all those changes, I will move for approval of the minutes subject to the changes that I've read into the record here.
I'll make a motion to approve subject to those changes.
So you'll second, I moved. All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
That's
sorry.
okay.
Aye.
That's all right. Opposed? All right, moving on. Article 4, this is the part of the meeting where we acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak to non-agenda items. I see no one in the room. Do we have anyone on the Zoom? All right, we'll just zip past that. To Article 5, discuss and consider village landscape planners RFP. And you have the draft RFP in your packets. And Sandra, do you want to give a brief presentation about this?
Yes, thank you. So we did this last year. And that contract for the 2022 season was just a one-year contract for the flower pots. And then we also did that flower bed. If you remember, we redesigned the flower bed by Citgo. And that was just intended to be a one-time project. That was not going to be a yearly redesign. So we have an RFP in your packet tonight. And I did put in an option of a multi-year contract, so we could do 1 or 2 years. And I also did include some additional language to kind of beef up the expectations, if you will, of the planters for 2023. I'm looking tonight just for if you have any additions to the RFP. I did also put a paper copy in front of you on the desk tonight with landscape companies. These are companies that we sent to last year. I added a few as well. If there's any you'd like to add and or remove, I'm happy to do that as well. So just looking for some recommendations on the RFP and or changes.
Thank you. I know that my initial question was going to be whether you feel that the RFP addresses the issues that we had last year, because we did have some complaints, and Michelle, who couldn't be at the meeting today, said that she had received a number of complaints about the planners last year and was dissatisfied. So do you feel that the language you built into the RFP will give us some additional leeway?
I can, yes. So for example, I added, it's on page 4 and it's the second and third bullet points. At the time of planting, planters must be full with a variety of plant material with some repetition of the materials, providing some balance and cohesiveness to the planter. And then when the containers are planted, there should not be any dirt visible after completion. So I believe, last year there were some smaller plantings initially and thinking, well, eventually they'll, grow bigger and they will fill the pot, but we want the pots full
Right.
upon planting. So
Do we have any more seasons where where daylily will do it, or are we up after?
we're done. Winter was their last season.
Okay.
And my only comment as to term is, given that we weren't satisfied with Daylily from last year, I'm more inclined to go with a 1-year term as kind of a test year.
Yeah.
Particularly if we pick somebody new, so
Yep.
that we'll, if things work out, then we can entertain a
Okay.
longer period after that.
I can adjust the RFP submittal form just for a 1 year.
And just knowing that that was the issue last year, and it sounds as though we may have had that expectation, but we didn't communicate it. That we
Clearly, yeah.
don't immediately negate Daylily from a potential vendor to do this. Because again, we didn't set out the right expectations for them.
I'm not adverse to including them and sending them an RFP, but that said, I think that last year's performance kind of can certainly weigh into the
Sure,
decision.
well, absolutely.
About
I don't know if there's any other issues thereafter, as far as it sounded as though we're just. What I'm hearing is that it was after the initial planting for summer. That again, the pots looked kind of weak.
Right, and do you
Right.
have more feedback on this? I know Michelle had some and she is not here, but
Yeah.
she also helped to review the RFPs last year.
Renee and
Involved
Michelle.
with-
I think they could have been a little better. I mean, I think that they were okay. They weren't spectacular, right?
They weren't all
Yes.
wow.
Right.
Right.
We definitely want to wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Did we ever give feedback to Daylily
Oh, yeah.
at all?
I-
Okay, I just
yeah.
want to make sure we're just not having this conversation amongst ourselves.
Times, Right?
No,
I mean, I feel like there
I
were
talked to-
conversations.
I
yeah.
talked to Mary. Yeah.
What's the water? So are those self-watering or irrigation?
They're
Is that right?
irrigate, yeah, the
Bottom?
irrigation comes up from the bottom of the pot.
So the only other little tweak that I had was on page 3, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet. There's a missing of, so the end should be because of lack of care. It says have died because of lack care,
Oh, thank you.
not a problem. Other than that, I thought that the proposal looked really good, and I thought that the language that was added gives us, it clarifies that we're looking for a ready to go planting, and makes clear that they need to satisfy our special, sensitivities to how this is supposed to look. Other questions or comments? Are you looking for a vote from us to send this RFP to the
Ye-
landscape companies you've identified?
Yes, please. And then again, if there's any companies you'd like to add to the list, we can certainly do that as well. Or if you want to take time to, look it over tonight. I probably won't send this out until tomorrow afternoon or Thursday. So
Couturiers, even though there was a woman there that did custom pots,
yeah, I can add them.
and they always look really pretty when. I don't know if they offer that service, but maybe that would be one.
We can put them on there and
Agreed.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
hurt.
I'm not sure Native Edge does either, but I threw them on the list as well.
They can
so-
always just not respond.
Right.
Well, and if anyone else has any additional landscape companies they would like to send the RFP to, please email Sandra. We are working with a kind of tight deadline because we're asking for the bids will be open on March 16. And when do they close?
The
End of March?
16th. So
Oh,
That's-
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Yes.
that's when they have to be submitted and we will open them. Now, we
Got
can
it.
adjust that. I was trying to get them back for the March DDA meeting.
I would not, I don't think
So,
you need to adjust it. I think
It's-
that's.
Yeah, it's
an
going to be
appropriate-
quick turnaround.
Yeah,
so.
that's okay.
yeah.
So my point is, if you have anyone you would like to add, email Sandra ASAP. With that, would anyone like to make a motion to move forward with the DDA bid package as discussed?
I will make a motion that we send out the RFPs. Regarding the plantings of the pots to the 16 potential vendors. Plus if there's any additionals that come in overnight.
Second that.
Further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you much.
Thank you.
Let's see, Article 6, Cascade Branch of the Kent District Library Outdoor Gardens and Activity Space. This is an information item. So there's a report included in the packet, but Sandra, if you'd like to elaborate at all on that.
Right, so this is more for your information tonight. It's kind of as a refresher, if you will. So it's been a while since you've seen this. It's a refresher on the plan for the library outdoor gardens and activity space. Further discussion will take place at the March meeting. And Lulu will be at that meeting as well as Wes from Native Edge. So there are 2 drawings in your packet showing the phases, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then a smaller drawing showing really kind of phase 1 and 2 with a key so that you know what the numbers mean on the 4-phase plan, if that makes sense. So Wes provided the update that is included in the packet tonight, talking about the different phases and where they're located. He did tell me, and it is in the memo as well, that the site was surveyed last week. And so the surveyors will take that information and they'll put the plans together. They hope to have those. He was hoping this week sometime. And then once they receive all that information, they can finish, site design, look at site design and plans, make any adjustments accordingly, hopefully prepare a budget for the plan. And then, as I mentioned, this will come back to the DDA at your March meeting for any type of potential funding and or partnership opportunities. So my understanding is still that the Friends of the Library is funding phase 1 of the project. So certainly it would be phase 2 and perhaps beyond that.
So phase 2, is it determined that it is going to be a pavilion?
Yes.
Okay. I know there was the pavilion amphitheater debate.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Do you know what drove their decision one way or the other?
I do not. So I think Lulu and maybe Wes can speak to that.
I was told that's what they wanted.
The library.
And Native Edge, and then that pavilions got added in by someone at the township later on, but really what the library wants and what Native Edge initially proposed was the gazebo.
Cool.
And I think if I remember right, one of the past individuals that came and talked, they were looking for something that they could do outdoor programming with,
Correct.
Right.
where this will give them shelter then for outdoor programming.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Michelle emailed some comments, and probably appropriate to read them just into the record here so that they can make it into the minutes and for context at the next meeting. So her comments were, now that the area next to the Historic Society Museum has been identified and branded as a memorial park, there are some elements in that park from the previous update that don't really fit. The elements were for the children's activities, and even the modern concrete benches could be much more suitable for the library projects. They could be worked into the plans and will be donated, so no cost to the library. Then the memorial park could have some slight updates to make it truly have an aesthetic that is both fitting for the new identity of the property and fit better with its adjacency to the historic museum. So just for consideration by the library. And then as to area 12 on the map, she comments, this is not part of any of the 3 phases currently identified and could be the best solution for a quote gathering space, end quote, that is a clear direction in the strategic plan. Then there may be a need for additional survey of residents to clarify the specific elements that should be part of the property. The parking and access to the property make it the most ideal spot and could allow year-round activities for the entire community to engage. And I guess my response to that comment is, I think that they at least proposed the prairie glass for part of that section 12 as a kind of a traffic and sound barrier to give it some separation from 28th Street. So we would need to be mindful of that before targeting it as a potential gathering space, because we don't necessarily want to put kids right next to Cascade Road. Other comments or questions from the group? We'll hear a lot more about this at our March meeting. But if you have questions in advance of that, let Sandra know and she can pass that on to the people at the library so that they can be prepared to answer questions in March.
Yes, yep, I will pass Michelle's comments on as well, so.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right. Assuming there are no other comments or questions then on Article 6, we can move on to Article 7, which is an update regarding the McKenna status and projects. And really there's not a lot of progress, at least from the DDA's perspective, to report. So I kind of bless the concept of this being in a written memo rather than dragging them out to just tell us that there's not much to report. So, but Sandra, if you'd like to elaborate on what they've included here, please do.
Right, so I know Danielle has been talking with the road commission and did invite them to the March meeting. They are unavailable to attend that meeting. So our township engineer will be working with McKenna and having discussions with the road commission to find out what options may be available for traffic calming on Cascade Road. That seemed to be a big discussion item at the DDA meeting last month, so they are working on that.
Sandra, did they ever say what their objection to the speed limit lowering was? I'm,
So that is set by, that's the 85th percentile set by the road commission and the state police.
right.
So They
yeah,
take-
read up on that.
so when they do the speed studies, they look at you know, what the speed limits are out there. They take the 85th percentile of those speed limits, and that's where they set the speeds at.
I believe it's safe to say
So-
we all uniformly think that that is a bad way of setting the speed
Well,
limit, but yeah,
Yeah, it's the kids
Right.
dictating how fast you're gonna go.
precisely.
And so I see you guys have already.
It's a matter of
Tossed
constant,
this around.
well, it's a matter of constant frustration for us because now we have to try to employ strategies that will slow the traffic. So when they do another speed study, the speed limit will be lowered because we have slowed people down
It seems
otherwise. It's ridiculous.
Backwards.
It very much so.
I just think of other areas, just like going through south of Grand Haven, north. They slow traffic down to 35. They back up traffic to Chicago just to slow it down through Grand Haven.
I would love to,
Yeah,
you know,
sure, it
have them
covers
do
the
that.
areas they do that on, yeah.
but, you know, we have to make it a touristy area first is the problem. And I wish it were different, but we batted our heads up against this before and yeah. It's
I don't want to
frustrating.
rehash all your conversations.
No, perfectly legitimate question. And I mean, and you'll hear much more about it because it'll end up being part of our ongoing conversations about what we end up doing on Cascade Road.
And cities have that ability to work with the speed limits, townships do
And,
not.
and there's no like fine print of if you have X density of residential properties, X feet away from the road, there isn't anything like if you build that, then it slows it down.
Not
Right.
that I'm
Kind of
aware
thing.
of.
No.
Okay.
I mean, we could become a city, but that obviously brings a whole separate set of
Mhm.
issues over which we do not have control.
Yep.
Yeah,
So it's strictly that 85th.
It's
Percentile.
Yeah.
very straightforward.
right.
Yeah, the paragraph's about this big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drafted by lawyers. Curse all the lawyers, yes.
Raises more questions than answers.
It does, it does.
Have any of you guys been over, I haven't seen it, but someone was talking about on Wilson, I believe Wilson Avenue over in Granville. So that's a busy road and I'm
Mhm.
getting, and they built a pedestrian crossing that I think was
Over the road?
across it. I think that maybe like when there are pedestrians, then the lights turn on or so it forces traffic to stop when there are pedestrians. I have to be careful because I don't, but I
What's it
have an
called?
email on it.
There's a, and I don't know if this is the one you're referring to, but there's a mid-block crossing on Wilson, near their park. I can't remember, Wedgewood Park, I think is the name of that park there
Just before the
on
middle school?
Wilson. Well, before the middle school now. It used to be the high school in Wilson.
Right.
So between, Chicago Drive and like 40th Street. And there's some, I believe there's some of those flashing lights at that mid-block crossing,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
So someone brought it up and then I sent it over to, because I just don't know, but our in-house engineer, and he used to be in the traffic department in Holland. So he's looking at that and if I don't want to get hopes up, but
we'll do everything
But
we
Wilson
can.
Avenue's busy.
Mhm.
And the other place someone had asked about was, Thornapple River Drive, well, along Castle Park. Like it's just tough,
Yeah.
the really narrow and windy space was, because it's so hard to put a pathway in, but it's also like a speed track in there and it would be really nice to connect it. If you went one side and did one of those crossings in the middle of Thornapple River Drive and then on the other side, but it's just premature. So we can ask about, we can pepper him with these questions in the next meeting.
It's gonna be a long one. Or did you say McKenna cannot make it to our March meeting?
McKenna can, the road commission
Road commission
cannot,
can't.
they're
Okay.
not available,
Gotcha,
but
gotcha, gotcha.
if the DDA board has some of those questions, we can certainly send them with Eric and McKenna when they meet with the road commission.
After Eric's had time to, I don't want to rush his analysis, but if he
No,
has
it's
in
good.
advance of the March meeting, please let him know that we're interested in knowing whether that's a feasible option and then getting the road commission's feedback on it.
And then the road commission shared with him, I think it was last week, because I had Eric looking just without getting any response yet, but had him look into it and flush it out, like roundabouts and all that kind of thing. And the road commission sent to Cascade, their criteria about what areas are effective. Did you guys already have that? I
Oh,
hadn't seen it.
I'm just imagining. what's
Analyze
on-
the heck out of it, and then Eric had already done his. I haven't seen it, but anyways, we can pepper him with, he's a civil engineer too by background, so
Okay.
he'd be a good liaison to get things moving so we know what we can and can't do.
That's great. And I know McKenna was going to try to reconnect with the road commission about the roundabout questions as well. So
Mhm.
between the two of them, hopefully we can get a lot more information because we've been kicking around the roundabout idea for a while because that will eventually slow people down once they figure out how to use it. All right. Other questions about the McKenna memo and the project updates? I feel like here, Michelle actually had a comment that I think comes from some of her implementation committee work, and I'll read that into the record. The Architectural and Design Review Committee should have direction over B2 in addition to B1 so that there can be some guidance on that quote gateway into the quote village, both upper and lower. So I don't know that that's an issue for us, but now it's in the record for consideration.
I'll
Maybe
have
we'll
to
want to
look
talk
at that
about it.
because that is B1 down there,
Right.
but
Maybe-
she's saying also B2, correct?
She is.
Okay.
She's saying that that the Architectural and Design Review Committee should have direction over B2 in addition to B1.
Okay,
So that there's some guidance on the gateway upper and lower. So I don't know that that's us.
it's really, the zoning,
So planning.
planning
commission.
and zoning, yeah,
So maybe forward her email to the
But
planning commission.
right.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
And I think certainly when we have that joint meeting, that's a good time to,
Where, do we have that scheduled,
we
a
don't.
joint
I
meeting yet?
believe McKenna was going to, the
To work
first
on
one
it?
was going to be us with the planning commission, DDA with the planning commission.
Okay, I mean, it
So
seems like we're kind of
but-
barreling towards some of those issues, so
Mhm.
perhaps follow up with McKenna, so at
Yep.
least in March, we'll have an update
answer.
as to whether that is gonna come up shortly.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, McKenna memo? All right, moving on then to Article 8, update regarding the Centennial Park median islands, wow, excuse me.
So we talked about these also at the January meeting. I did reach out to the road commission to request reflective posts for installation. And just waiting to get a response back from the road commission. I did talk to Wes at Native Edge regarding some plantings for those median islands, something that's hardy and native, low maintenance. Hopefully something that will survive in the winter time as well. So Wes was going to run out and take a look at the islands and then provide a proposal for some work in those islands. So hopefully we'll have that soon.
And I mentioned to Sandra that I'm an alternate on the zoning board of appeals, and at our meeting last week, the same issue came up. And the chair of the ZBA directed that this issue be elevated to the township board if necessary, not knowing that the DDA had already discussed it. So I think that there will be some additional pressure on the road commission as well, which hopefully will get some movement just in time for all the snow to be gone.
Wait, so how did it come up at the ZBA level?
In
Did
other-
Someone,
The chair of the ZBA mentioned that he, noticed that people keep running over the islands.
who's the
and
chair? I'm just curious.
Aaron Mead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's now the former chair because there was an election at the meeting.
Okay.
He was chair at the time.
So he brought it up on his own.
He did.
You get so many, it's funny, the different things you get complaints.
I know,
about.
well, and it's fun, and I mean, because I was there, I said, funny you should mention that because the DDA is already on top of this and this is what we're doing, so. All right, other questions, comments about the median island issue?
Just that the road commission just bumps it right back to the DDA because I've asked them about it. So it's really like, well, the DDA put them in, we're not fans of it, but.
No, but we need the post.
Oh, just following up with that.
Yeah,
Well, that's what we need to
Post. Yeah,
Yeah,
bump them.
yes, yep. Yeah, I'm just waiting for a response back from them on that.
Okay.
give them a little poke.
Yes,
Tell them
oh, yeah.
that, yeah.
Yep.
People are antsy about it. All right, Article 9, update regarding the Cascade Road Bridge pedestrian improvements.
So if you remember, we talked about this maybe late last year, November meeting, and that was going to be Cascade Road where we talked about shaving down the existing sidewalk, putting in some bollards or a barrier, if you will, to create a widened pedestrian walkway across that bridge. So the Kent County Road Commission will begin the engineering on that. If they haven't yet, very shortly. Getting that engineering done will help determine what the project cost will be.
I thought they already did that. It's just a matter of, we didn't decide if we have the second side or not. And they're gonna give an option for, like, we already know the cost on each side.
It was a tentative cost. They said maybe around 250,000 per side. But the engineering will help determine, nail that cost down a little better. So,
So they
But
were
yeah, the
all
D-
parking.
yeah, that was a ballpark. So, and yes, the DDA said, let's hold off on the second side until we see what the costs come back as. It would, if approved, could potentially be a late summer, early fall project, depending on the bids, what they get back for bids. But it will likely be, I was told it would likely be back before the DDA board in April for review and consideration. So, and at that time, there should be some costs as well as some plans.
I think there also was concern about traffic flow and safety. If you do both sides of it and then the squeezing almost
Right.
like a bottleneck onto the bridge.
Correct.
And it was, it's easy for us to sit in these chairs and say, yeah, let's do the other side without knowing the implications of doing it. So I think that was something we had to get an answer for, that it may make sense to do one side. If you do both, you could create bigger problems of safety.
Right. And we had conversations about trying to abate that by doing the cantilevering, which ended up being a much more.
$2 million
expensive. Yeah.
project versus,
Correct.
right?
So we decided that thought would be a thought for the future rather than a thought for the present.
And then I didn't know if there was a discussion about studying what that, not a robust study, but if there was a drawing to see visually what the impact would be and a traffic expert or someone to weigh in.
That would
Was
be
it a
helpful.
good or a bad idea?
That would be helpful. I mean, because it was a concern articulated by several members of the board that, narrowing the traffic by that much could cause more car accidents, which is not something we want either.
What we may find that to achieve what we need to, you take care of one side of the bridge and then you create a crosswalk similar to the Wilson Avenue or something. There might be a combination of things to achieve the goal that we want without hurting or impacting traffic flow and safety. So I think there's a couple decisions in there.
It would be nice to see, I'm guessing that when we get the quote regarding cost, we'll get to see the engineering mockups also that'll show us lane sizes and
Yep.
differences to current, so that we'll be able to visualize that.
Right.
Other questions or comments?
Just that I get the impression, I can't repeat everything very well because but I get the impression, it would be helpful to have more substantive, because from pathway committee meetings and meetings with manager Swayze and stuff, there are more details available, and it's kind of like the DDA hasn't been part of the conversation. So the stuff that I'm listening to are all very good questions, but they've already been like, I'm not in a position to reiterate it very well, but this is all stuff that's
So can you
the
collect that
DDA isn't getting-
information from the other
Yes.
committease and then include
This
it
is
in the
months
packet?
ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
Otherwise, we're just gonna keep spinning our wheels because the road commission's been ready to go, and
This was the last, been confirmed this information, for this packet, so I
just think that there needs to be substance, because these are the same questions that have been coming up, and then the road commission has an answer to all of it. So I'm not in a position to answer because I'm not the road commission, but these are all the same questions that have been out there. It's just the DDA doesn't get the same level of information, so we can't have constructive conversations without the information. Like, this is, the weight is on the
Yeah.
DDA.
Well,
We
the
can't
intent
make
is
the
to
decision.
have all of the information at next month's meeting.
April.
And that's why
Oh, I'm
making-
sorry.
No, but I'm just saying, making a comment, having been in other meetings, the weight is, the DDA needs the information that's already been discussed at different levels, and I'm not in a position to, as supervisor, to provide it, but we need it, because
So,
DDA is behind.
My recommendation is this, before the April meeting, if Sandra could work with Grace to make sure that our project packet is complete so that things aren't missed, then we'll be able to have all the because I don't know what's been reviewed by these other commissions or boards.
Yeah.
So,
we can do that.
other comments or questions?
I think the projects could be a huge positive for us and help address the concern, not only of the board, but also feedback from the community from all the surveys. So it's a great project. Just
And could
making
we-
sure we do it right.
The March meeting, is that,
April meeting.
I know, but I'm just saying, is that what we were told by the road commission?
I was told the April meeting, so. Yeah, and I believe that's what the strategic plan implementation committee was told at their meeting as well, so.
Well, once we
That
get
was
all the, it'll just be productive, because
Well, it's unfortunate that Michelle isn't here because she's on the implementation committee, and so she's kind of our connector. for
no,
some of these
I'm on
pieces.
it too,
Oh,
and it's
oh,
the same,
my bad.
it wasn't discussed in detail at the
Okay.
strategic implementation committee.
Okay,
In the pathway committee it was, and then with the road commission and with Ben it was, but
so
the road commission has their act
who is
together, they're
the
ready to
path-
go.
Let me ask you this, who is the pathway committee providing reports to within the township to keep other people abreast of what's going on?
The pathway committee is just like the DDA, so
But-
staff is
okay.
the what, so the staff that works with the pathway committee would be Brian Hillbrands. But we're in the process of getting a parks director, but Brian Hillbrands is our planner. And then Eric Thorne, the new township engineer, works very closely with them. He's the one who came up with immediately, as soon as we hired him, within 3 weeks, he had a maintenance plan for all the existing pathways. So those are, and then Ben, those are the 3 staff members.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to try to come up with an inter-office communication plan here that would overcomplicate anything, but obviously,
No,
because
this is-
those have relevant, well, but if they're not given to Sandra, then she's not magical and can't divine them onto her desk. So
Oh,
perhaps talk with
Yeah,
Ben,
I'll
talk
have
with
those
the planning
conversations.
director to come up with a system where they routinely provide all that to you, so you don't have to ask them for them.
Yep.
So that, I would think, would solve the problem in getting all the information to you. Cool. Other comments or questions? All right. Oh, wow, that brings us to Article 10, any other business? So we've got a bunch of events coming up here. Sandra, why don't you tell us about them?
so I mentioned this at the last meeting. We do have our small business resource event Wednesday, March 8th. I will send that sign up if anyone here is interested in attending. It is a recruitment and retention event for small businesses. It will be here at the Wisdom Center. We do have a great panel that will be talking at that meeting. So as I mentioned, I will send that link out to you. I believe registration closes next Wednesday. So and that's a lunchtime thing. That's 11:30 to 1. Included in your packet are the strategic plan implementation meeting minutes from their last meeting, January 20. The strategic plan implementation committee is meeting March 17th. That will be their next meeting date. Transportation committee is meeting next week on Tuesday, February 28th. And then you have the, as I mentioned, the implementation minutes in your packet, as well as the township board minutes in your packets. And next meeting for the DDA is March 21st.
And there's a lot that's going to be on the agenda for that meeting, so
Yes.
let's
Yes.
try to be here if we can. Any other business?
I will tell you, I know we talked about this a little bit before the meeting. Electric Cheetah is closing.
Wow.
They did find somebody to take their space. Tacos El
Cunado.
Cunado, thank you. So we will have a new restaurant located in there.
Do you have any idea who, what was it called? Used to be taco, something that was Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, this conversation too.
Taco Boy.
Yeah,
Our minds are on Mexican food.
sold, but any idea who,
Oh, El Capriados sold or
wait, which
Capriato-
one? Is that one where
Capriatos.
turkey
Cap-
stuffing?
Old
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donut site.
Okay.
Oh,
Next
That's
family
sold?
friends.
yeah, that did sell
Oh, Capriatos, you're right.
Capriados.
That's what I heard when I took our
Uh-huh.
cats for their annual appointments at the vet.
I'll have to look into, I hadn't heard that, so I'll check it out.
What about Village Bike Shop? Any idea what?
That is Douglas Holdings is the new owner of that. And I believe they're turning that into an office of sort, so. Yeah, interesting.
Is that cute little coffee shop, drive-through coffee shop open? That looks like it's almost.
Scooters?
ready. Yeah,
Scooters.
Not yet.
okay.
Yeah, not yet. They still have a little bit work to do.
Gotta say, I've gone through Tommy's several times.
Yeah, it looks like it's a prospect where they've built it and now they're looking for an owner. They had a sign up that said, please, you can be the franchisee.
Oh, interesting.
The coffee shop.
I would have assumed it would be,
That was the sign. I looked at it twice because I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Because there's a new one that they just opened on, which I was really surprised. They tore down the Chase Bank on the corner of 44th and Retton.
Yes.
And they just opened up one last month.
Oh,
there.
wow.
And then there's the first one up on the pad of. After you get off the exit there on
Plainfield.
Plainfield,
Yeah.
right there in front of
You're
you.
staring right at it.
Yeah.
And
you
that's
know,
like
this is the same
exit.
franchise owner for all of these locations or?
Wait, is it Tommy's?
It's
Tommy's scooters or.
They always go next, like on the ones you're talking about, is there always the car wash plus the coffee shop?
No.
Oh.
I
And-
thought
and-
that the original plan was that they were supposed to be.
Holland.
Can I-
The franchise it is.
The
Okay.
scooters is, oh,
And is Tommy's also?
Yeah, Tommy's, so it's the same owner.
Okay, that makes
uh,
sense.
And they're franchising both. Sometimes they marry the two, sometimes they don't.
Hmm.
So they do have West Michigan roots.
That makes sense.
Okay.
'Cause I think the original plan was to have the two buildings connected, right? And
That
then
was my
the planning
understanding,
commission,
yeah.
They separated it, but that makes sense. It's the same owner
interesting.
and then tomorrow at the board meeting, there's the possibility of the Tuffy building. They want, is it the
Yes.
Midas or some? We want to maybe sell to a different company, which could trigger the take
Yes,
back of the lease.
thank you for bringing that up.
So we could
You
get it
want
back
to-
earlier than anticipated.
But I don't, we have to, so the attorney will be at the board meeting tomorrow and it's open session because it's. It'll be an awkward public, maybe just what triggers the take back.
They want to transfer the lease to Mavis Discount Tire.
Oh, interesting.
So it's just another of the same. Same one.
Might be a park.
I mean, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
It might not be the same at all.
bring that back.
Oh.
So that'll be
it's a
interesting. I don't
month,
remember the language of the agreement
Uh,
offhand, but I vaguely recall that that's prohibited or triggers.
So it does trigger review and it triggers them providing some, financial information to the township and township board.
How much do we have left on the term? I know there's a renewal baked in there too.
So they have re-upped their 2 5-year renewals. So
Okay.
we are, I think we're in year 1 of the first renewal,
Okay,
if you will.
okay.
So we have
So-
long readers.
So
Right.
it was a 10 years, so we still have
Well, but if he could be.
about 9
counting
years to go.
The extensions.
Yeah, the extensions.
Okay. Interesting. I'm sorry that I won't be
So
able to
then,
be there.
So then what I hear you say is that the lawyer tomorrow will take, or give guidance and or feedback based on what he or she has read through this contract to say, yes, we have the right at this moment in time to take back or take our property.
Will that be in closed session or
No,
is
it's
that
all open.
interesting? Okay.
So with that said, well. I was gonna say, with that said, there could be the possibility that some of these funds with the DDA may be needed in order to get that property.
Up and spiffy.
Yeah.
Sooner than we thought. I think that the DDA, yeah, I mean,
Also might make
So that
the
could
second
change
side of the
the-
bridge.
it could certainly.
Priorities.
Yeah, and walkway on the other side, depending on how it looks, could get more use possibly.
Right.
Could be good stuff.
It could be good.
Walkway on, you mean the walkway on the bridge?
So we're
No.
talking about,
The,
let's put an arch in.
oh, yeah, the, you know, the
pedestrian
potential
pathways.
for two sides versus one for the pedestrian crossing. But
Right.
depending on what it looks like, it might.
Oh, I was on a different wavelength. Okay. Well,
Okay, well, that's interesting.
well, if they don't, let's add an agenda item to the March meeting,
Mhm.
with an update on that, please.
Yes.
Other items or business?
I attended the opening of new pet store last month with Sandra was there. Very nice pet store. Owner is very, very nice.
What is the name?
Your
Your-
pets naturally or something?
Your
Is that
Yes.
one right by Hallmark?
Yeah.
Your
Laura
Pet
Van
Center.
Homer, yeah.
Is it their first one or is it?
I guess it's a franchise and the first one's up in Traverse City area. And he's hoping possibilities of opening one or two more in the area, all depending upon how this one goes. So,
Very nice.
Yeah.
Other business? Anyone? All right. With that, we move on to Article 11, which is adjournment, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll second that.
You want to make them? I didn't make the motion.
I'll make a motion
motion.
to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you so much. Who wants to support that motion?
I will second it.
Why, thank you.
Shortest meeting I've ever had.
Yeah, I know. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.